Welcome to the Navseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, listener, to episode 103 of the Ad Nauseam podcast. I'm down here in the vomitorium with my good friend and co-host, Dr. David Noe. How you feeling tonight?
I'm doing well. And your name is? Did you even say?
Oh, I didn't.
No.
I'm Dr. Jeffrey Winkle.
That's wonderful, Jeff.
Yes, but you're doing all right? You're feeling good?
I am doing well. I'm excited about this podcast. You know how much I love the E word.
Yes.
I like to throw the word excited around.
All right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Willy-nilly.
Mr. Excitement.
That's what I am.
Yeah,
that's
right.
what I do.
Yeah. How you feeling about the snow on the ground?
I was just gonna ask you about that. Well, I think that the how does this go? The moon on the crust? Is it crust?
What?
The moon on the crest of the new. Is it crest or crust?
I think it's crest.
I think crust sounds better.
Okay, we'll go with crust.
The moon on the crust of the new fallen snow.
Yes.
Gives the luster of midnight to objects below. Isn't that how it goes?
Who are you quoting there? I don't know.
This is some kind of a Christmassy thing, you know?
Is it?
I in my kerchief and Mom in her cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. Don't you know this?
Is that the Bon Jovi? Is that?
No, I don't think so.
No. I think you're right.
You don't know this one?
I don't know, but I think you're right. It is crust. Right? I was thinking like the moon cresting, but it's on the crust of the snow.
But I think... Yeah, I don't know. Crust, crest. Let's call the whole thing off.
All right. Well,
you're feeling well.
I'm feeling well. You know, we had a glorious fall here in Western Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had the colors and the temperature.
It was fantastic.
It was
75 degrees on the previous Thursday, Thursday last.
It's nuts.
It could not last.
So no, and usually when it gets cloudy and cold and wintry, I get a little bit, crotchety.
You do. Let's be honest.
But this time around, I thought, you know what? We had such a glorious fall. I'm okay with
There's nothing to complain about.
The blast coming in. No, there's nothing to complain about.
No. So we have some nice, beautiful, fresh fallen snow this morning. Took a walk around the neighborhood.
Nice.
To do some contemplating.
Yes. Really, what were you contemplating? Lunch?
Yeah, I was taking a break from my other kind of work. I'm doing a lot of Latin translating now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's grueling.
Yeah, you know, we should do an episode where you talk about kind of what you're working on. I think our audience would like to hear more about that.
I would enjoy it.
Yeah.
I can go on and on about some of the minutiae.
Yeah.
Of the things that I'm involved in. How about you? What are you up to these days?
I'm in the grind, kind of getting the latter end of the semester, where the students despair and they start to give up and disappear a little bit.
And it's your job to provide the motivation and the confidence.
I do my best, but it's one of those things that, when you have the Thanksgiving break, and then after that, there's 2 more weeks before exams.
That's lost time.
It is a wash.
That's right.
Nobody wants to do anything.
Nobody's showing up.
No.
Right.
Exactly. So I'm kind of bracing myself for that.
Yes. So what do you think about this? If I can just try out an idea here with you.
Sure.
I think that part of the role of the teacher is to supply the motivation for the student until they have it for themselves.
I would totally agree with that.
You say, look, you're here because you got slotted into this class by the registrar.
Yeah.
Or because, I don't know, your mom, your dad, your uncle, your cousin, your boyfriend, your girlfriend said, hey, take that one. Okay, here I am.
Right.
But your job is to provide the motivation and the confidence until they have it for themselves.
I totally agree. And I have to remind myself that I'm here to model the curiosity and passion that I want for each of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yep. Exactly. But yeah, it can be a tough sell. As the weather kind of goes south and the days get shorter. Ooh, I'm bracing myself.
That's right.
Yep.
As they say in Latin, Jeff, rem acu tetegisti.
And what on earth does that mean?
Rem acu tetegisti. You have touched it.
Yes.
You have touched it with a needle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like saying you have hit the nail on the head.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, they had this expression. So you have the rem, right, the topic, the idea. Acu, fourth declension noun in the ablative.
Yes.
Instrument. Tetegisti from tango tangere. Right?
Very nice.
So you've hit the nail on the head. You've poked it with a needle.
Yes, and excellent. Now I'm extra motivated to get back in that classroom.
Yes.
Start poking things left and right.
There you go.
So, Dave, what are we talking about tonight?
We are in the Aeneid once more.
Yes.
And it's time to launch into Book 7.
Right, so we're in the second half.
That's correct.
So I feel like...
Halftime is over, right?
Halftime's over. We need like a halftime pep talk.
The marching band is off the field.
Right. But what happened in the locker room? What's Aeneas saying to the guys?
That's a great question.
Right?
Yeah.
He's got to rally the troops here. Because it's It's coming down to the wire.
I imagine him standing in front of a chalkboard, an old-fashioned chalkboard.
Yeah.
None of this whiteboard business.
No.
Right? No. We got to search around for your dry erase marker, which is usually more dry than erase.
Yeah, forget about it.
Chalk. Right?
Chalk on the board. I'm
That's
also
right.
imagining all of the men, if we're continuing the like say a football metaphor
That's
here.
right.
They're all wearing kind of those old leather helmets without the face mask.
Missing a few teeth.
Yeah.
I left one in Sicily. I left one in, Carthage.
Exactly. Newt Rockney.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're on bended knee, gathered around Aeneas, and he's giving the boys a pep talk.
Exactly right. So maybe we'll see a bit of that in
It could
book
be.
7, right? Because the venue changes, the whole focus changes. We're moving from the Odyssean half of the Aeneid into the Iliadic.
Right.
So we should be expecting big changes.
That's
here.
right. It's the third quarter, right? It's really come down to this now.
Yep, that's right. So shall I proceed with the opening quote?
I would be happy if you did so.
Okay.
But I'd also like to point out that we have no shout-outs.
Oh, man, that's a little disappointing.
It is, because let's face it, the best part of this show is the listeners.
Right.
And the kinds of things they contribute in terms of their insight and their commentary.
Yep.
We'd like to hear from them and about them.
I agree. So listen at the end of the episode for our email addresses. Come on, drop us a line.
Yeah.
We want to hear.
That's right. But the opening quote is it's from a certain Kenneth J. Reckford.
Yes. This comes from an article he wrote way back in 1961.
Wow.
In the American Journal of Philology, called Latent Tragedy in Aeneid 7, lines 1 through 285.
That was before the British invasion, if I'm not mistaken.
Just before.
Yes.
This is just as the Beatles were kind of doing their thing in Germany.
Landing their amphibious boats on the shores of New England, right? And
Exactly.
storming the Merv Griffin show or something like
exactly,
that.
with their bowl cut haircuts.
Right.
And singing and not bobbing their heads back and forth.
Yes.
The world was never the same
No,
afterwards.
1961. So way back in 61,
Yep.
Kenneth J. Reckford.
He wrote this.
All right.
He wrote, Aeneid Book 7, lines 1 through 285 is generally considered the calm before the storm. Aeneas, his Trojans, and the Latins enjoy an apparent respite from troubles before Juno's arrival, line 286. But Juno is no dea ex machina, and the storm which she conjures up would be dramatically unconvincing were we not prepared for it by a complex foreshadowing of tragedy in Latium. First, a sense of foreboding hangs over Aeneas' arrival. Secondly, the invocation to Erato recalls and directly affirms earlier prophecies of the Latin war. Thirdly, the obscure situation of Latium is associated with the known tragedies of Troy and Carthage through parallelism of incident, the happy landing of the Trojans, their feasting at night, and exploration at dawn, the embassy, the address of Aeneas, and the monarch's kindly welcome, and the exchange of gifts all have tragic connotations from books 1 and 2. Fourthly, Latinus is associated with Dido and Priam, Lavinia with Dido and Helen, and Latium with Carthage and Troy by means of an elaborate symbolic web of verbal and imagistic echoes from books 1 through 4. So I was reading the rest of the article. One of the things that Reckford is trying to tackle and is trying to convince the reader of is that, he's arguing against a general reading of the Aeneid that says the second half and the first half are almost two distinct epics, to the point where the latter 6 books don't really reflect back on the first part. And so
There are people who hold that position?
apparently maybe that was huge in 1961.
Yeah.
I was unaware of this. And so
I wasn't either.
So he was pointing out, no, there's these very direct connections and echoes of the previous books. And so it's not so much, the Odyssean half is over, and now we're on to a whole new storyline.
Right.
So
if we can refer to our good friend Brooks Otis,
Yes.
right? Virgil, A Study in Civilized Poetry, that was released in 1964.
okay.
So I think that this book, with its brilliant description of the architectonic nature
Yeah.
of the Aeneid, I mean, the storylines in there are so elaborate. I suppose this was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Since we're talking about needles and nails tonight, it
Yeah.
appears.
There we go.
That was the nail in the coffin for this notion that the two parts of the epic are separate endeavors.
I guess Reckford was just waiting for Otis to
Correct.
come around a couple years later. Yeah. But I also thought it's interesting how he kind of points out that also this general view that these first third of book 7 is it's a really short honeymoon.
Right.
Right. And so Aeneas, as we'll see, he's welcomed very kind of passionately by King Latinus and the like, and he basically says, make yourself at home. You want a city, go build it.
Right.
But it doesn't take long for this to quickly fall apart.
Right.
Yeah.
And then war breaks out.
Yes.
War destructive.
War destructive, and it goes full Iliad fairly quickly. But I also thought it was interesting that for all of the calm before the storm, all of the kind of the short honeymoon that Aeneas gets, the book starts with a funeral, and Caeta, Aeneas's nursemaid, is buried in the opening lines of Book 7.
Right.
So there too, it starts with this very somber note, and I think that casts a shadow, or kind of tells us that for all of kind of the happy things that happen in these next few lines, never forget that the tragic darkness is never far.
Yes. Speaking of tragic darkness never being far,
Yes.
I think it's time for some core agenda.
Oh, what did we mess up now?
Do you think I threw the audience off the scent there? Because it sounded so much like I was going to introduce the ads.
But this early?
Yes. No.
yet.
Don't worry, listener. We'll get to the ads. No, some core agenda.
Okay.
We made 2 last week, and I think one we can share responsibility for. It was both of us.
Okay.
The notion that at the end of each of the first 4 books, there's a death.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we missed out on book 1. It's the death of Anchises.
Oh, of course.
That's kind of a obvious oversight on our part.
Yeah.
The other core agenda, I'll take, core agendum, I'll take sole responsibility for. Alba Longa is not northeast of Rome, as I think I said. It's 12 miles southeast.
Oh.
So I know, gentle listener, you have been tossing and turning, losing sleep, engaged in deep lucubrations, thinking, when is Noah going to figure it out? The actual location of Alba Longa.
Right.
How could he do that to me?
They do this. Somebody has been tossing and turning. I can't believe they haven't kind of rage tweeted.
Sent us some sort of a nasty email.
Yeah.
Alba Longa.
Come on.
We were so focused on the Buffalonian, if you recall.
Exactly.
That we got our geography messed
That's
up.
right. Well, it's very easy to get distracted by the buffalo.
I suppose.
Right.
Alba Longa is 12 miles southeast of Rome. So there's our core agenda.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks for bringing that up.
Of course.
I completely missed that.
Sure.
Dave, you want to start us up by reading some Latin?
I would, and I would like to start with the very first lines
Okay.
of Book 7. So Book 7, lines 1 and following, and then you're going to give us some of the Lombardo. Am I right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, here we go. Book 7, line 1. Tu quoque litor bus nostris Aeneia nutrix, aeterna moriens famam cae eta dedisti, et nunc servat hanas dem tuus ossaque nomen, Hesperian magna si quest ea gloria signat, at pius exequiis Aeneas rita solutis, agere compasito tumuli post qualta qui erunt, aequor attendit iter velis purtumque relinquit, aspirant aurin noctem nec candida cursus, luna negat splendet tremulo sub lumina pontus.
Very nicely done.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Lombardo translates thusly: when the last rites were done, and her burial mound heaped up, godly Aeneas set sail from the haven. As soon as the high seas had subsided, breezes blew on into the night, and the moon shone white on the tremulous water below, lighting their voyage. Hugging the coastline, they passed the land where Circe, daughter of the sun, lived in opulence. The woodland rang with her perpetual song, and in her high house she burned fragrant cedar to illumine the night while she worked the loom, combing her shrill shuttle through the delicate threads. And from those shores could also be heard lions roaring and snapping at their chains late into the night, the raging of bristled boars and caged bears and huge wolf shapes howling.
That's great.
Isn't that great?
It's such a great translation of a beautiful portion of the poem.
Yeah. So we get a Homeric nod.
Yes,
right?
of course.
A bit of fan service.
Right.
As we've seen along the way, Aeneas has passed by or journeyed through places where Odysseus went.
Yeah, for old guys like me, what's fan service once again?
Fan service is like when you have a remake of a movie,
right?
And they trot out the original actors showing up. I think an example that I think I used in a previous episode is the latest Ghostbusters film.
Yes,
you had one of the original Ghostbusters guys has passed on,
but you had Aykroyd come back.
Aykroyd and Bill Murray
right.
and Ernie Hudson, they came
right.
back and at the end of the movie, and it was one of those moments where the audience kind of goes
right.
yes, like or applauds.
Or in the Top Gun movie, where there's just some kind of, you haven't seen the new one.
I have not.
You're not missing anything.
No.
There's some kind of a piano scene, apparently that was part of the original. It was all lost on me.
Really?
When I think of fan service,
okay.
I want to talk about it for a moment in a digression about a revolutionary moment in my life.
Please.
Do you remember being a kid and being hot in Michigan summers?
Of course.
Yes, this is before AC was, cheap and readily available.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to cool down, you had to have a fan, right? The first fans were box-like structures with whirring blades.
Yes.
But do you remember when the oscillating fan first came out?
I mean, I don't remember specifically, but
This was a big deal, Winkle.
Really? So you remember this?
Yes, I
very
do.
clearly, okay.
I remember pressing the button and watching it oscillate. This was great entertainment as a kid. Because before that, the fan was always fixed in a static spot. You could sneak up on it from the side.
Yeah.
But not with these oscillating fans. They're all over the place.
Well, wasn't it kind of disappointing because the oscillating fan it's blowing on you just half the time, and so like, oh, that feels
It can
good.
blow on
now it's
everybody.
gone. Right.
Or if you're a kid like I was, you can move around and
You just kind of follow
block it. Right.
The novelty was the oscillation itself.
Yes.
I gotcha. Right.
On 3 speeds. You don't remember this?
I remember we had one.
It was revolutionary.
I don't remember this as kind of a. Like
You weren't impressed?
Like there was before oscillation and after oscillation.
Yeah. What is it? BO and AO. Maybe you had television. Maybe that's the difference.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, I do remember the early box fans. I mean, they were all metal.
That's right.
Exactly.
Dangerous things.
Exactly. You remove the grate and you could like
You
shred
lose a finger.
You could shred meat with that thing. Yeah. So that's the kind of fan service that
I appreciate.
You gotcha.
Okay.
Right.
But we digress.
We do it.
So
right.
the burial mentioned here, the funeral, is for Aeneas's nurse, right?
Right.
Cafeteria.
Yeah, it's Caeta is her name.
Oh, sorry.
And there too, it seems. I mean, it strikes me as a bit kind of thrown in. And
There's a reason. It's because of geography.
So her name gives the name to the place.
That's correct.
It's etiology. Okay.
That's right.
All right.
And that you're not impressed. I can tell by the shrug of your shoulders.
No, it seems a little tacked on. It's like Aeneas, like Virgil has to kind of account for the mark that Aeneas leaves on the landscape everywhere he goes.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I guess so.
Let's say a boat sails up the Grand River and lands here in Grand Rapids. You wouldn't want to know that, the captain of the boat buried a nurse in Hudsonville and buried a best friend in, Grand in Grandville and Hudson in Hudsonville.
I'd think it a little weird. I'd suspect of maybe being a serial killer, possibly. But I guess it's mildly interesting.
Mildly interesting? These are huge landmarks.
Yeah, I guess.
It's attaching Aeneas to the terrain in a very literal sense.
I guess so. And because that's part of Virgil's program, right? He wants to kind of establish how important that the Trojans were, how foundational they were to kind of the Roman project.
Absolutely.
Right? And so everywhere you go, you see the fingerprints of this man.
It's also, if I can just defend the notion a little bit, it's a sympathetic touch. Because look at who he is burying, right?
Okay.
He's burying his nurse, right? This is the potentially last connection to his old life.
Okay.
Father's gone, Creus is gone, Dido's gone, Palinurus. This is maybe the last connection to the old life.
I like that observation. I think that that being true, it surprised me that we don't. Aeneas kind of buries her and. Well, let's move on. There's very little emotion. Maybe he's just numb to this stuff by now.
Right.
Yeah. But I think also just in terms of kind of framing the episode, it too is like we get some happy kind of celebratory scenes coming up. It's like the Israelites or the proto-Israelites, reaching the promised land, right? And there's it's a time for celebration, but there's a lot of work ahead, and kind of starting this off with a solemn funeral. Again, Virgil is saying that, it's just time for celebration, but never forget this cloud. Right?
So then they glimpse the mouth of the Tiber.
Yep.
And Aeneas, he commands the ships head in that direction.
Yep, goes up the Tiber. He starts to feel it now.
Okay.
Neptune sends them a fair wind so they don't wind up on Circe's island and become transformed into a part of her menagerie.
That's correct.
Right.
And that's where Odysseus's men, they still are, perhaps?
Oh,
they're still trapped, right? Because the time frame here, he has landed at a number of different spots just weeks behind Odysseus and his journey. For example, when he sailed past Nicopolis and the Cyclops shores.
Right. And that I thought that I would have loved maybe a couple more scenes like that. So with the Cyclops episode, remember there was one of Odysseus' men that had been left behind comes down and
kill me if you must. I'd rather die at your hands than be eaten alive.
Right. And so that kind of direct intersection with Homer, I liked that.
So you like the fan service now?
I do. Well, I never said I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it was I thought it was the funeral. I thought rang a little hollow for me.
Okay.
Right? But I love the fan service.
Well, what's the opposite of ringing hollow? Ringing solid.
Ringing solid, kind of sounding, kind of kind of dead and empty.
All right. But that's what ringing hollow is.
I guess so.
So what makes a funeral not ring hollow for you?
Well, I guess what I was saying is that it seems kind of perfunctory. It's like we have the funeral and we move on. I liked your observation that this is like the last kind of familial link that Aeneas has. And if that's true, why don't we see him a little bit more kind of contemplative?
Especially clever because she's not actually a family member, right? As a nurse, she is a surrogate family member, an adopted family member.
Right.
He can't even hold on to that.
No, exactly. So I mean, and to compare the Homeric story, Odysseus returns home and Euryclea, his nursemaid, is still alive.
That's what I was thinking of.
Okay, yeah.
So Aeneas has to bury his nurse, right? But he buries her not on foreign soil.
Yes.
He buries her in the new homeland.
Right.
She's the marker.
Right.
You mentioned, the Israelites moving into Israel. It's not unlike, and I just mean in externalities, not in theological meaning.
Yeah.
It's not unlike picking up Joseph's bones and burying them in the promised land.
Yeah.
He extracted the promise from, I think, his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. When you leave here, take my bones with you because I want to be buried with God's people. So Qaeda has a burial that's with the new foundation.
I gotcha. There too, I like it, but then it would strike me as, well, why not bury Anchises there? Why
is he in Sicily?
I don't want to throw shade at Qaeda, the nursemaid, but if this is going to be your first marker where the transfer of somebody's bones, why not bury a heavy hitter?
Well, I guess I could say he represents the old world too much. This could just be special pleading.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Which is probably my least favorite fallacy.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
The special pleading is, it's right because you say it's right.
Yeah. I gotcha. All right. So, let's move up the Tiber.
Let's move on.
All right. So they find the mouth of the Tiber and they sail up it. And then at this really kind of interesting moment where Virgil invokes the specific muse of Erato. Mm-hmm. And so Erato is one of the 9 muses, and she's usually associated with lyric poetry, and not just lyric poetry, but usually with erotic lyric poetry.
As her name indicates.
Yes, right. And one of the things that puzzles me is, why is he invoking that muse? So
because there is a romance that's about to be inaugurated.
So you think that's what it's kind of pointing towards?
It's possible.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite muse?
Well, I listed the muse. I had to remind myself who they all were.
Okay.
And so, but maybe our listeners would like a refresher. So you have Calliope, who's the muse of epic poetry. Mm-hmm. You have Clio, who's the muse of history. Euterpe, the muse of flutes and music. Thalia, muse of comedy and pastoral poetry.
My favorite.
Your favorite.
Yes. Yeah, there's a fabulous bust that survives from antiquity of Thalia.
Where's this one?
I don't remember where it is. Okay. I'll have to look it up during the break, during halftime.
Yes.
While we're crouching in the locker room.
Exactly.
But it's such a beautiful, beautiful image of a woman who, she has great natural beauty, the marble bust, but there's just kind of a smile playing around her lips.
Oh yeah.
So it's perfect for comedy.
So that's why you like Thalia.
Thalia.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Then there's Melpomene, the muse of tragedy. Terpsichore, the muse of dance. Erato, love poetry, lyric poetry. Polyhymnia, hymns and sacred poetry, and Urania, the muse of astronomy.
Right.
So astronomy, I always that's kind of gets its own muse.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Who hasn't looked up at the night sky and felt inspired?
Right. But I think it goes against the grain of kind of how we divide our areas of learning, right?
Yeah,
we tend not to think of astronomy in terms of poetic terms. Well, maybe you and I do, but in terms of as a field of study.
The planets are named after the gods and goddesses.
True enough.
So Lewis's space trilogy, I think he brings out the notion of what's out of the silent planet, Paralandra, and whatever the third one is. Mm-hmm. The notion very well that the planets they're alive, they're creatures in some sense.
Yeah.
Tapping into that classical idea.
Yeah, exactly. The music of the spheres.
Right. Exactly so.
Okay. But
the daughters, right? The daughters of Zeus and Memory, Mnemosyne. Mm-hmm. That's where they all come from.
Exactly.
So why pick out Erato?
Erato, I think you're right. If I had to connect it to the story at hand, is that it presages the relationship between Aeneas and Lavinia, which frankly is not really a hot romance.
Not at all. It's a dud.
It is kind of a dud, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a dud.
Right. So I don't know. You guys maybe wishful, hopeful thinking on Aeneas's part. And But I guess I don't know how else to make sense of it, or what else Virgil might be trying to say by invoking that particular muse.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really have any interpretive light to shed upon that.
Okay. Well, this is something for our listeners to ponder then.
Right. So then, Jeff, we are introduced to King Latinus.
Right.
The cult hero, the founder of the Latin people.
Exactly. So they go up the Tiber, and so I guess they must be roughly in the area where Rome will soon be. Not
Correct.
soon, but at some point will be.
Yeah, it's about 300 years off, but that's where everything starts.
Right. And so they meet Latinus, and let me give a little Lombardo here to introduce him. He translates, King Latinus, old and gray, ruled over lands and cities through a long twilight of peace. He was born, we are told, from Faunus and the Laurentine nymph Marica. Faunus' father was Picus, and Picus looked to you, Saturn, as his father. You are the founder of the royal line.
Okay.
Right?
So we got Saturn as the father of Picus. Picus is the father of Faunus, and Faunus is the father of Latinus.
Right. So in that short genealogy, we have Latinus's links to the larger kind of Greco-Roman mythology,
Correct.
Saturn's, and then also figures like Faunus, more kind of indigenous,
Right.
kind of divine oracular figures. Right.
Right. And Saturn, of course, is Kronos among the Greeks.
Yes.
And this, he went to Italy in his retirement, kind of? Is that the story?
I don't even know that one. Is that how it went?
Yeah, well, he was originally a god of agriculture.
Uh-huh.
And so he was not a sky god like Zeus or like Jupiter, but he was a god of agriculture.
He's usually depicted with the reaping, the scythe, right?
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I didn't know that he kind of, when the Olympians won, he checked out and kind of said, "Well, I'll live over here."
This is sunset retirement, right?
Yeah.
Del Boca Vista Phase 3.
Right. Well, I mean, it's that kind of that Roman, as much as they loved Greek culture, they, with this kind of the story of Aeneas and going back to the Trojans, they're kind of taking kind of the opposite track. And so
Right.
Zeus, the Olympian in the Greek tradition, we'll take Cronus, one of the Titans that was defeated.
Right.
Right. And so we'll take Aeneas, who was one of the Trojans that was defeated, and they
Right.
kind of spin their own kind of gold out of that thread. Mm-hmm. Yep. So Aeneas learns that Latinus has an available, not so available daughter, Lavinia.
Right.
And Latinus is starting to kind of wonder, hey, maybe this kid has got it. Maybe
Right.
this wouldn't be such a bad one to have in the family.
But here's the catch.
What's the catch?
The fly in the ointment.
Yes.
Is that, of course, she is already engaged to one Turnus.
Right. And not only that the second fly is not only she's already engaged, is that Latinus's wife, Amata, she says that's the union that's got to happen. She's in Turnus's camp and really wants that marriage to take place, and so she's not going to be happy about if her husband says, "Hey, well, what about this guy?"
Right.
Right.
Are we ever given a justification for why Amata is so fond of Turnus and the ensuing nuptials?
I didn't see it in my
Right.
in my reading of this book this past week. So, but I didn't even think about that. But that's. It's like the actress playing Amata would ask the director, "What's my motivation?"
Right. Why do I like Turnus again?
Exactly. Right. But it also reminded me, did you ever have in your back in your dating days, did you have a situation where the mom didn't really like you and maybe thought like maybe a previous boyfriend was
Pretty much every situation.
every time.
Yeah.
Oh man. See, I had the opposite problem.
Okay.
The mom always loved me.
Right.
The girl, not so much.
interested. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a funny dynamic.
Yeah.
It's a funny dynamic, those relationships, because everything is unknown, right? So, your Aeneas is courting Lavinia, right? But there's no way he's going to get in on Amata's good side.
No.
It's just not going to happen. But Latinus is all in favor of it.
Latinus is all in favor. He wants the new guy, and I think Amata is there to kind of to play a role. She is there to kind of throw a monkey wrench into the works.
I think I said last time she's like a foil.
Yeah, I mean, if that works, and so, but it would be nice to have a little bit of background. That's a tale waiting to be told.
You're right.
It's one of those loose threads where a poet can take that and run with it.
Like a mashup kind of a thing.
There you go. There you go. I like it. So,
We've got some prophecies here.
yeah. So in Latinus's favor, the gods seem to be kind of on his side in terms of accepting this newcomer, and we got bees. Right. Aeneas, Virgil loves his bees.
Who doesn't?
Well, when we talk about the Georgics too, I mean, how many lines are spent kind of talking about the buzzing of those bees?
The whole book.
The whole book is
book 4.
front to back bees.
Yep. It's fascination.
Yeah. He loved it's that idealization of the countryside. Right. Right.
And if I can, mention another C.S. Lewis reference, I'm much less a fan of C.S. Lewis than most persons like me whom I meet.
Right.
But I'm a little bit of a fan.
Okay.
So here's another one. Lewis said, men naturally hate, this is kind of chauvinistic, but I think it's a joke on Lewis's part.
Okay.
Men naturally hate bees for 2 reasons. Their society is communistic and it's ruled by a woman.
Did he really write that?
Words to that effect, yes. It's almost verbatim.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, not to go on too much of a digression, but I mean, are you kind of, you said you're not a huge Lewis fan.
No, I read him a lot when I was young,
Okay.
but then I went on to find other things far more enjoyable.
I gotcha. Okay. Are you, in terms of like, you don't like his fiction, you don't like his theology, or is it both? Or?
Well, we've talked before about how he is a better critic of literature, I think, than he is a philosopher.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So I learned a lot from him, but then I kind of outgrew it.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
I don't know if that sounds haughty, probably.
Right.
But
maybe he's right on bees.
Absolutely. Okay. Or at least he may not be right, but he's funny.
So there's some bees that buzz around some of Latinus' sacred laurel trees. And so the laurel tree, of course, associated with Apollo. And these are oracular bees. And so there's a seer. He's watching the bees. And I think there we see a little bit of a hint of like the Roman augur to come, right? Watching the bird signs, right? You can interpret the future by watching what animals do.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, specifically the flight of birds.
Flight of birds, or how chickens kind of peck around.
That's a good point.
So I think we see a little bit of that. And I'm trying to think of a Greek corollary, but I don't
think the Greeks practiced augury quite as much.
Not in this fashion. I mean, they're oracles, of course, but
well, and they shared with the Romans the haruspex, right? The auspices.
Yeah.
You cut open the animal, you look at the liver and the lobes and the striations and so forth. Mm-hmm. They shared that together, and that seems to be Near Eastern. Hittite.
Yeah.
But the Romans were much more dedicated to augury, the flight of birds, than the Greeks.
Right. And here we get the flight of bees.
Mm-hmm.
And so the seer interprets that. He says this outlander, this outsider, will soon arrive in the same direction that the bees are flying. And so the bees are flying apparently from, I guess that would be from west to east, or
yes, right. As the wind blows across the Italian peninsula from west to east.
Yes, right. And so that's a sign that you got to watch out for. The mysterious stranger.
Correct.
Was a trope you find in literatures around the world.
Coming into town.
Yep.
Can I read a little bit of this, Lombardo?
Yeah.
Okay. The king was troubled by the... Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We got to back up a little bit, don't we?
We
have to talk about the hair on fire.
Oh, good. This is a really bizarre scene, too. So there's another sign where Lavinia is standing a little bit too close to a smoking, burning altar, and her long hair catches on fire. And but apparently this is also another omen to be interpreted.
Had that hair been treated with like an oat milk Garnier?
Yeah, I mean, which does wonder for the follicles, but I mean, so flammable. It's like gasoline. Right, exactly.
Right.
So apparently this is a kind of a two-sided oracle. The first interpretation of the hair on fire is that, her future is going to be as bright as her burning hair.
Okay.
Right? So she's got good things on the horizon, but it also means that war is on the doorstep as well. So, and I guess the same bee seer can kind of see that immediately as well.
Interesting.
Yep. But now, so Latinus is he's troubled by all of this, and what am I going to do? And so he consults the oracle of Faunus, his father. And would you read these lines?
I'd love to.
Yep.
The king was troubled by these portents and consulted the oracle of Faunus, his prophetic father, the Vatic grove beneath high Albinea, a great forest that echoes with the sound of a sacred spring and breathes mephitic vapors from its shadows. Sounds like my mouthwash.
What are mephitic vapors?
Related to the underworld, death and hell and
like
brimstone.
Mephistopheles?
That's
is the
correct.
same root there? Okay, mephitic.
Yes, that's my toothpaste. The people of Italy and all Oinotria come to consult this oracle in time of doubt. It is here the priest brings his offerings. And when he has lain down to sleep upon the fleeces of slaughtered sheep, in the still of the night he sees many phantoms flitting about in strange ways, hears many voices, converses with the gods, and speaks to Acheron in Avernus's depths. Father Latinus came to consult this oracle. He slaughtered 100 yearling sheep in ritual order, and lay himself down, cushioned by their woolly fleece. Suddenly, a voice came from deep within the grove.
Shall I read what the voice said?
Well, should we talk about this part a little bit first and build some suspense?
One thing that I dropped the ball and meant to kind of search for is, I don't recall this oracle showing up in like historical sources. Was there an active oracle of Faunus in and around Rome? I mean, we have the Sibyl at Cumae.
That's right.
And there's archaeological evidence of that was an oracular shrine and entrance to the underworld. But the oracle of Faunus, I don't know if that has been found or
not to my knowledge.
Okay. Yeah. What strikes you here?
Well, the slaughter of 100 sheep,
Yeah.
right? This seems like a little bit of a Homeric nod as well, because there is the holy hecatomb, right?
Right.
The hiere hecatombe, the slaughter of 100 head of cattle. Mm-hmm. Here it's 100 head of sheep.
Yeah.
And lays down on all the fleeces before consulting the oracle.
Right. So he kind of stretches out.
That's what it says.
He gets comfortable.
That's what it says.
All right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. He cushioned by their woolly fleece.
Right.
Yeah.
And now the voice.
The voice comes from deep within the grove, says, "Seek not, my son, to marry your daughter into a Latin family. Trust not a wedding already prepared. A stranger will come to be your son-in-law. His blood will exalt our name to the stars, and his children's children will see the world turn under their feet, and their rule will stretch over all that the sun looks down upon, from sea to shining sea." So a kind of almost an Abrahamic type of oracle.
Yes.
These your children's children will number like the stars in the sky.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like what Lombardo does here, from sea to shining sea. That's a reference to America the Beautiful.
Right.
The song America the Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, Lombardo has to have that very familiar phrase in mind when he chooses to translate accurately the Latin of that particular line of verse.
Yeah.
That's clever.
That is very clever. Now, one little kind of possible nitpick here. So Faunus says, seek not, my son, to marry your daughter into a Latin family. Turnus is Rutulian. So is he...
Fair.
Is Latin just kind of speaking to
just
a local
generic.
family?
Yeah, it's generic.
All right. Okay.
Boy, you're picking nits
Well,
there.
I don't know. I just wondered because if he said into a Rutulian family, being more specific about
Correct.
Turnus. All right. Well, okay, fine. And so for Latinus, then this is it. That his kind of instincts about Aeneas are correct, and Turnus has to go.
So we're given Latinus's motivation for wanting to have Aeneas as part of the family.
Yes.
The destiny, the prophecy that his descendants will rule the world, right? Everything will turn under their feet.
Right.
So that's his motivation. But why is Amata so set on Turnus? Is there some kind of a rift between her and her husband?
I think that's fairly clear, right? It's not just that they're not on the same page about what's best for their daughter. It doesn't seem like a very happy match, right?
No.
And even when like Aeneas winds up with Lavinia, it's
very bland.
There's no Dido-like sparks there.
No,
right?
it's very bland.
It's very dutiful.
Right,
And maybe that's part of the point, right?
Maybe she's the quintessential Roman bride.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of married off where her father sees fit.
Right. For political purposes.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of political purposes,
yes,
it's time for the ads.
This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by Ratio Coffee, the good folks in Portland, Oregon, with the famous entrepreneur, Mr.
Yes.
Mark Helweg, has done it twice.
2 times.
First, the Ratio 6, and then its older, more sophisticated brother, the Ratio 8, delivering fantastic coffee.
Do we know? Did he start with a ratio 6 and then?
Oh, no.
And then he said, "Oh, I can improve upon this."
No, it was the other way around.
Oh, really?
The Ratio 8 was his his brainchild.
Yes.
And then he said, this machine is too beautiful. Really, it's in some ways, it's difficult to produce to that high standard of quality. So let's make an equally high standard quality machine, but a little smaller footprint.
Yep.
Leave you with a little more, what do they call it? A countertop real estate.
Yeah.
And a little more attainable,
Yes.
which is euphemistic for not quite as costly.
Right. I got you. So that's how that story went.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I hear you have something special for the listeners today, Dr. Winkle.
I do. I composed a limerick.
All right.
In kind of praise of ratio.
Something about Nantucket?
No, we're going to stay far away from the eastern seaboard. All right. So this was, if I may.
I'd love to hear it.
The carafe neither fakish nor faddish. The bloom all the bane it will banish. Mark Helweg has done it, so don't Keurig or bun it. Be free from the tang that is brackish.
Oh, wow. You need to insert some applause here, please, Mishka.
I enjoy writing limericks in
That
my
was
spare time.
That was fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I was waiting. We got to line 3, right? And then we got the bun it.
Yes.
The bun coffee machine. I
Right.
like that, but I was waiting just to hear brackish tang. Was he going to get it in there? And boom, there it was.
There it was, yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, now you've upped the ante.
Yes.
I think I'm going to write one for next week.
A limerick or another style of poetry. Or you could do a haiku.
I do not like haikus.
I don't either.
Not at all.
It's a lazy man's poetry.
Well, I won't say that because someone very dear to me likes haikus a lot.
No.
But I do not like haikus.
No.
I just don't. Limericks, though, I like them a lot.
I do too.
Did you have bloom phase in there anywhere?
I did. The bloom all the bane it will banish.
The bloom, all the bane. Oh, it's alliterative too.
Yes.
Okay, but there was not the word phase.
No, I didn't have phase.
Okay,
Well,
so I can see my territory is marked out for me now.
there you go. I'm eager to hear what you come up with. Yeah.
So if the listener wants to plug in to some great ratio coffee and be inspired to compose original poetry like Dr. Winkle has done and like I hope to do, what do they need to do?
Well, they need to go to ratiocoffee.com, ratio coffee.com. Pick one of these wonderful machines, the Ratio 6 or the Ratio 8, and plug in the coupon code ANCO7B,
Yes.
and that will get you 15% off your entire order.
Now, that is only until November 30.
Right.
Right? If you're listening to the episode after November 30, and I think we're going to release this very soon.
Yep.
Then you want to use a different coupon code.
Yes.
And that is ANCO, that is Ad Nauseam Coffee, K5.
Right.
As in Klondike or kitten or what?
I think they got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Kevin.
ANCO K5. Don't people like to represent the letters with words? I thought that's what they did.
Well, that's like
Bravo, Charlie, Delta.
Exactly right. It's like an airplane.
We don't want to do
talk.
that?
I like that.
I can connect it to the ratio.
Okay.
It's made out of a airplane grade aluminum.
There you go. But I want to use that November Charlie stuff next time.
Okay, all right, you can.
But
It's yours.
I want to use the proper terms. Yeah.
ANCO 7 Bravo or 7 Brackish.
Yes.
And ANCO Kevin 5.
There we go. This episode of Ad Nauseam also brought to you by Hackett Publishing. Hackett Publishing now in their 50th year, celebrating this year their 50th anniversary of being in the book selling biz, making affordable, approachable, readable, wonderful translations of the classics and many other corners of academia for a very long time. Where are their offices, Dave?
They are in Cambridge, Indiana, and Indianapolis, Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. So, and I have another limerick.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Wait a minute, I'm mistaken, though. You didn't even catch it.
What did I miss?
You were
I was so
eager
excited about
to get onto your limerick.
I know.
I switched the states and the cities.
You did?
Yeah, there's no Indianapolis, Massachusetts.
No, that's right. It's Indianapolis, Indiana.
Not that it matters.
All right, sorry.
Let's hear the limerick.
Okay, so this stems from the thing one of the things I love most about Hackett is the
covers.
The covers, right? And so this is kind of a celebration of that.
You're spending a lot of time setting it up here. Just lay it on the people.
Okay. If you're looking for gems on the jacket, don't you fall for some book dealing racket. Only a genius could sell us Dionysus as Elvis, and you'll only find that here at Hackett.
Very nice. Lines 3 and 4.
Yes?
I might have a little nit to pick.
Oh, come on. What is it?
Well, could you read lines 3 and 4 again?
Yes. Only genius could sell us Dionysus as Elvis.
Only genius could sell us Dionysus as Elvis.
Yeah.
It's good. It works.
Okay.
It's apt.
It's apt. All
Nice.
Right. So you changed your mind.
I changed my mind.
Okay. Excellent.
I can grow. I can mature in a short span of time.
Yeah, good. Oh, I like to hear that.
Beautiful.
Right. Excellent. So
very nice.
We can expect maybe a couple of poems from you next week.
Ooh, boy, you've really set the bar high. I think I can handle the ratio, but can I come up with a good one for Hackett?
No, give it some thought.
We'll see what we can do.
All right.
I'm at the Hackett website right now.
What do you see?
I see Thomas J. White, Discovering Philosophy.
Okay.
This guy, I guess he trekked to the North Pole and dug around. There it is.
You found it?
No. This is the 4th edition.
Oh, goodness.
And the Western literary tradition right next to it, Islamic legal theory, Plato's Laws by C.D.C. Reeve. That's a brilliant translation, by the way. 7 Myths of Military History, Samurai, destroying to replace. I mean, it's just so vast, right?
Yep.
So much here.
So much there.
Classics and the rest of the world.
Yes, and you'll get for works that need to be translated, they'll often have more than one translator for the same work, so you can even find variety within that, which I think is really rare for a book publisher like Hackett.
I think so.
Yep. So, Dave, if our listeners want to take advantage of our great offer, what should they do?
Well, I think that they not only want to take advantage of the great offer, I think they also want to support this podcast.
Yes.
And if they want to do that, they need to go to hackettpublishing.com. Hackett. Hackett. It rhymes with jacket, for example.
Yeah.
But not with racket.
It does rhyme with racket.
Oh, I'm sorry. It rhymes with racket as well.
Yeah.
And find the items you like, put them in your little grocery satchel, and drop this coupon code into the slot at the time of checkout.
Yes.
And that code is AN2022.
Excellent.
And that will earn you, dear listener, 20% off your entire order and free shipping.
That's a huge deal. Take advantage of it. You will not regret it.
Check it out. All right, Jeff, so as we get back into it,
Yes.
where are we exactly?
Well, we've just heard this oracle from Faunus, right?
Right.
Which tells him, don't marry Lavinia off to a local kid. You got to.
No.
It's this newcomer. That's where the future is. The destiny.
With his denim jacket and his motorcycle. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of. I'm picturing a little kind of James Deany,
Yes, I was too.
kind of pouty.
Right.
Yeah, and always have the cigarette kind of dangling from one lip.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not really Aeneas, though.
No, he's more kind of.
He's Johnny Dutiful.
He is. He's choir boy.
Right.
He's a Canadian Mountie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So rumor gets a hold of this and starts spreading it, and everybody starts to get a whiff of this story. Starts whiffing the mephitic vapors, and Latinus can't contain the leak, and so this is a bombshell that starts to ripple through the community, and of course his wife Amata is going to catch wind of this very quickly.
Right.
Yes. But meanwhile,
We have the fulfillment of a prophecy, don't we?
we do, so that we hear that the Trojans are stopping off for something to eat,
Right.
and they start bringing out the stores to have kind of a picnic on the
Right.
on the lawn.
They have their low-carb tortillas.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
They
Right.
got to keep their slim physiques, not going to be carbon up.
Exactly.
And,
The Trojans are kind of going keto.
that's right.
Right.
They got their cans of tuna fish with the mayonnaise
Right.
ladled into it, right?
Yeah.
What else are they eating?
Well, you got your veggies, right?
Okay.
And then maybe some sort of maybe a tomato-based spread.
Maybe to keep Virgil happy, there's like a canister of honey, right?
There you go. Oh, yeah.
And some tahini.
Yeah.
You down with the tahini?
I do enjoy tahini.
Yes. Can you explain to people what tahini is?
Well, it's kind of liquefied
sesame.
sesame.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
You mix that with a little bit of honey, you got a Greek breakfast right
You
there.
do. It's great stuff.
So they're taking all this stuff out of their picnic baskets, right?
And but they don't have anything to really kind of put it on.
No, they got their huggable portions, I think.
Absolutely. But then they discover, hey, let's just stack a lot of this stuff on this kind of this crusty flatbread we
That's
have.
right. And so that's when pizza was invented.
Right. So many people point to this passage.
Right.
Not even so much tongue in cheek as saying, hey, this is the first pizza.
Really?
Right.
I thought it was always tongue in cheek.
Well, some things I was reading is that pointed that this is kind of the first time we see kind of this very specific kind of Italian cuisine.
Interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
I don't buy it for a minute.
No, I buy it usually every Wednesday from Domino's.
Jets.
Or,
Yeah, exactly. Right.
what's the other one? Papa John.
Yeah.
So pizza was invented in Italy, as the listener knows.
It was.
In the city of Naples.
Right.
And I used to think that the Latin for pizza was Panis Neapolitanus, which is Naples bread.
Yeah.
Now I know it's probably better called Placentia.
Placentia.
Yeah, Placentia Neapolitana.
Okay.
Similar idea, but it was invented in Naples as poor man's food.
It was.
You got nothing to put it on, and the best pizza in the world, in my opinion,
Yes.
Naples.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Really?
Oh, it was fantastic there.
Right, and
It's
you-
really good, really fresh.
And then you have the green of the basil and the white of the mozzarella and,
Yes.
the red of the tomato is the Italian flag.
That's correct.
Right.
So since we're digressing a little bit, are you a Chicago style or this newcomer Detroit pizza?
I like them both, but if I had to pick, I'd go with the Chicago.
Chicago, right?
Yes.
The Detroit pizza, I don't care for that.
No, you really?
Nah,
Okay.
there's nothing good about it. You got to go to the deep dish.
Yeah.
You want to swim in your pizza.
Well, I mean, they're kind of leaning in that direction. So, I mean, the Detroit style pizza is a bit, it's thick.
Thin and squarish.
Well, it's thicker than just kind of your
Fair.
your flatsy pizza. But if you're gonna go thick, go all the way.
It's not like a piece of Domino's pizza that you can actually see through. Right?
Exactly.
It's translucent.
Right. The translucent. Yeah.
Now, there goes that
That sponsorship.
potential sponsorship.
But if Giordano's in Chicago is listening, we'd be more than happy.
Absolutely.
To have them on board. Right. So we have them eating the flatbread with all the toppings.
Correct.
Right.
And maybe
then,
some sliced hot dogs.
Really? I hope not. But
No, that's terrible. But
exactly.
some people do that.
It's low carb. And then they realize, oh my goodness,
We're eating our tables.
we're eating our tables. And it reminds everybody of what happened in Book 3, where they hear this prophecy from Kalino, the queen of the harpies, that says, you will not reach your land until you have eaten your tables.
Right.
And everybody said, what in the world does that mean?
And they just filed it away.
By the way,
It'll make sense someday.
right, they didn't see that coming. They didn't see
Someone write it down on a scratch pad or something. Or
I don't know.
Maybe get a deltoid tattoo.
Dude, if you remember Book 3, though, it was chock full of oracular goodness
And crazy things.
and crazy things. So
Who remembers Book 3? That was 45 episodes ago.
no, exactly. So I can forgive the Trojans for saying, "Oh yeah, that one of 335 adventures that we went through."
That's correct.
That slipped through the cracks, but
What was that episode number anyway?
that was 87.
Okay,
so it was a
what-
while back now.
What was the forgettable title? I can't remember.
I don't know. Do you got it in front of you there?
No, I'm looking it up, but
Okay.
you just keep talking.
Yeah. So back in episode 87, we got this prophecy. And this is in some ways kind of maybe the final confirmation that Aeneas and the Trojans need to say, okay, now we're in the right place, and now we can kind of start the second half of this story, right?
Right. So the forgettable title of episode 87
Yes.
was Crouching Helen, Hidden Destiny. A reference to a very old movie.
Yes,
Was
exactly.
it, who was that famous Chinese actor?
Chow Yun-fat.
Chow Yun-fat.
Right.
But he kind of, he peaked, didn't he?
He did peak, and then no, I don't think he's been heard from since.
I think he's in Vegas.
Is that what it is?
No,
It has kind of a
He's playing Vegas.
he's got a residency at the Mirage.
I think so. He's flying around the set on wires, performing martial arts. Anyway, that was the name of the episode.
I'd buy a ticket to that.
Boy, we're way off track here.
We are. All right. So yes, this final confirmation: the tables have been eaten; they are in their promised land. And so Aeneas, being his Aeneas-y self, he says, "This is the perfect time to honor the gods." And he begins a prayer there, very interesting, by acknowledging the place's indwelling spirit, which again is a very kind of Roman-y thing to do.
Of course.
Yeah.
The landscape is suffused with deity.
Yes.
Every brook, every rock, every stone, the cigarette butt that someone throws out the window and lands by the side of the road.
Yeah.
That's a deity
That's
right
a deity
there.
right there. Boom. That's a deity.
Exactly.
Right. But it's another reminder. Virgil's throwing in these very Italianate things, right? And so while there's lots of overlap between Roman religion and Greek religion and their view of the gods, this notion of this animistic landscape where everything is God haunted is a much more indigenous Italian thing than it ever was a Greek thing.
Yeah, the overlap is a little forced, honestly. It's mostly the work of poets and intellectuals. I don't think the common people thought that their gods and the Greek gods were all that similar.
No, I think you're right.
It's syncretistic, right?
Yeah.
It's the compulsory combination. It's not as though they were so much alike.
right. So even where
And I knew that you meant that. I
Yeah.
was just trying to bring a little clarity to the discussion.
No, that's good. So even in the way that how the Romans would worship the so-called Greek gods in threes, right? They'd have like their own.
The Capitoline Triad.
Right. It was Juno, Jupiter, and Minerva.
Right.
And so that's also the names are, or the gods themselves. They're reflective of the Greek gods, but they're worshipped in a very Roman type of way.
Absolutely. The
Yep.
construction of their temples. We've already mentioned, the focus on augury. Mm-hmm. It's very different.
Yep. So now there's nothing left to do. Well, there's a lot left to do, but there's in this moment we've got to check out the land and start building walls,
Start conquering.
start conquering. Right.
And this is the only real start, as opposed to all of the false starts, right? Like Polydorus and Thrace, and the attempt on Delos,
Right,
and
right,
the
right.
attempt on Crete. All those misdirections. No, that's not it. Finally.
Yeah.
Right? He's been carrying, one of the sailors has been carrying this shovel for how long?
Oh, exactly. It's just dying to use it.
Can I finally use the shovel? Right?
Right.
It's still in the plastic.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. It's like the sacred trowel still
Exactly.
in the box. Right. And so I thought this struck me as, again, unintentionally funny. So he orders some guys to go out and say, go take a peek, see what we're up against, which again, kind of remind me of Joshua and Caleb.
We've been reading a lot of the Pentateuch and the early historical books lately.
Well, I haven't. It just, I know them, I know them fairly well.
Yeah.
And just a lot of this stuff, the prophecies and this element kind of struck me like, these are people, that are going to a destined promised land.
Right.
But it's not just a cakewalk that they're going to have to carve out their place.
That's right.
But I thought it just struck me as kind of unintentionally funny how Aeneas, while they're gone, just starts, he takes out his own sacred trowel and just starts digging trenches and marking out the boundary. He's not going to wait to kind of build his city. And I thought, I guess if destiny's on your side, why bother waiting, right? It's a foregone conclusion.
Right.
So he doesn't wait for the report from his spies. He just starts digging.
He just starts digging.
Yeah.
He says, we're going to build this city.
Yep. We built the city on...
Your favorite song, Starship, Mickey Thomas, your favorite song.
Oh, exactly. Right. I could talk for days.
Did you want me to read some Latin here?
Yeah, would you?
I would love to.
Yeah.
So this is line 192 is where we're starting here. We only on line 192?
Oh, I know. We're
going to be in this book a while.
Yep.
Here we go. Talentus templodivum patriarque Latinus. Sede sedanes teocleros ad seisin tecte vocavit, atquaec ingresis placido prior edidit ordre, dicet dar danidae nequinim nascimus et urbem, et genus audi ti quad vertitis aequora cursum, quid petitis quae causa rates aut quius agentis, litis ad au sonium tot per vada caerula vexit?
Very nice. I like the
Thank you.
the interrogative inflection there.
Did you like that?
I did.
Wexit?
Wexit?
Yeah, I try to do that. I don't think that the Romans actually did that when they spoke and read Latin, if they used intonation.
Yeah.
I have been told by, ones wiser than me that there's some suggestion in Plautus and Terence, that without the typical question markers like the enclitic ne,
Yes.
right, that it was conveyed, an interrogative was conveyed at least sometimes by inflection. But I don't think that that's, really well anchored in the scholarship.
That's really interesting, right? It's so easy to kind of make these assumptions that kind of works the way we work it.
Right. And there's no basis for most of those assumptions.
Right. Yeah. So I find that kind of aspect of linguistics really fascinating.
I do too.
It's kind of the music of the words kind of tells you what it's doing without even the definition of them.
Yeah, that is fascinating.
Right.
English does that ubiquitously, right?
Right.
In fact, you can ask a question without the intonation and everybody knows you're being sarcastic.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Interesting stuff. So I when I read Latin now, I want to do it kind of consistently with kind of like a Valley Girl up talk, right? And so and then I went from here to there.
That is the worst.
It's the worst. I can't stand it. Right. So these lines you just read, we have this is Latinus addressing the Trojans. So
And this is Lombardo, right?
This is Lombardo, right? So we learned that the news of these strangers have reached Latinus, and he invites them in. And so this also in terms of like Odyssean parallels, maybe Latinus as Alcinous from the Phaeacians.
Yes.
Right? So we're still in kind of an Odyssean honeymoon there, and the hammer of the Iliad hasn't fallen yet. And Latinus says, "Sons of Dardanus, for we do know your race and your city, and have heard of your sea voyage. Tell us why you have come." So the story, just like in Carthage,
it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. They already know all about this stuff. What purpose or need has borne you over so many dark blue seas to the shores of Ausonia? Whether you lost your bearings or storm winds blew you off course, as often happens to those who sail the high seas and so entered our river, do not refuse our hospitality. Know that the Latins are Saturn's race, a people just not by laws or constraints, but of their own free will, keeping the ways of their ancient god. And I seem to recall, though time has dimmed the old Auruncan tale, how Dardanus was born in this land and went from here to Phrygian Ida and to Samothrace. It was from here he came, from the Tyrrhenian town of Corythus. And now he sits in the golden palace of the starry sky, while here on earth there is one more altar to the gods above. So we have this link. So it's not just the Trojans coming from Troy all the way to Italy. It's coming full circle.
Coming back home.
Like their original ancestor was Italian.
They're autochthonous.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So that also it underscores the destiny. It says Aeneas and his people belong here,
Right.
Because it was originally belonged to their ancestor.
Well, you know that old legend about the Etruscans coming from somewhere in what was Asia Minor, recorded by Herodotus.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's been a lot of effort to establish, via DNA evidence and linguistic evidence, to establish the historical validity of that link.
Oh, really?
And I don't know exactly what the status is. I think it's generally believed to have some basis in truth.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's been concluded.
Really? So even DNA,
Some kind of evidence.
Ancestry.com,
Yep.
trying to establish that's fascinating. That's really interesting. So
Coming full circle.
coming full circle,
Right.
right? And so Latinus already seems to kind of know all about the Trojans,
Right.
And the Trojans seem to, in many ways, also seem to kind of know a lot about Latinus in a way that kind of I made a note here. Is like, how do they know so much about each other? I mean, the story of the Trojan War has preceded them, but on the flip side, it also seems that the Trojans already know a lot about Latinus.
I think it's TikTok, honestly.
Is that what it is?
I think there was someone on one of Aeneas' ships who was, posting videos the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? Here we are pulling out of the, harbor of Carthage. What's that fire up on the hill? Let me catch that.
Right, catch that. You kind of frame yourself
Right,
in the selfie.
Instagram.
Yeah,
right. So, Aeneas, quick selfie, you, me, Dido, right?
Oh, man.
And that's how it was spreading, like wildfire.
Like wildfire, right. Well, absent TikTok,
Right.
I thought maybe what Virgil was going for is that this immediate camaraderie, this immediate kind of knowledge of the other is also kind of, it's saying, look, this is meant to be.
Correct.
Right? They're already speaking like family.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's close, right. And that great source of augury, right? Twitter.
Twitter. Yes, exactly.
Where do you get your news? Where do you find out what's going on? From the birds.
Yeah, there you
Twitter.
go.
Yeah.
Perfect. So Latinus, again, he's keeping this oracle that he just got in mind. He welcomes the Trojans, promises them land and sanctuary, and he's immediately convinced that this kid Aeneas is going to be his son-in-law.
Right.
But the problem is he didn't tell his wife.
Right.
And his wife is going to be very upset about this.
So
Not
he's-
just his wife, but Juno.
He's planning to go to the game. He's purchased tickets. He's lined up his buddies. He's catered the food.
Yep.
Right, leaving at 6 a.m. in the morning, or he's going on a fishing trip or something like that. But then there's just that one little detail.
Yeah.
He didn't tell his wife.
He didn't tell his wife, and you're just asking for
Right.
it.
Honey, do you think it would be okay if those words never left his mouth?
Right.
So we're having a little fun about the battle between the sexes, but Virgil likes that too. He
does.
As does Homer. Right?
Yep.
It's a comic trope going all the way back to the Iliad.
Yes.
So now the honeymoon is over.
It is.
The lull in the story, right? The calm, peaceful, tranquil part, it's done.
Yeah, so this is we're getting to line 286 where our Ope quoter, Reckford. I believe
Yes,
was
that's
his name.
correct.
This is where he says that now it's go time.
That's correct.
So Juno comes back, and she again, very much like in the Odyssey, Poseidon returning from Ethiopia. He says, "What's been happening?"
He was down there being feted, right?
He was.
By the locals, enjoying a feast and a sacrifice.
Yep.
He comes back and there's trouble.
There's big trouble. All this stuff has been happening in his absence, and so Juno has been off at Argos over in Greece, and she comes back, and she is not happy. And here's some Lombardo here. So at home on the land, their ship's empty. She stopped in midair, pierced with grief, and shaking her head, poured forth these words. This is Juno.
Do you have a Juno voice?
I don't have a good Juno voice.
Be someone like, who's that actress when we were very young who was Kathleen Turner,
Oh yeah,
known for her deep voice?
exactly. Kind of a little bit of that too.
Is that how she talks?
You're talking. I was thinking of Katharine Hepburn. Sorry, you were thinking Kathleen Turner. Katharine Hepburn had the
no,
shaky
I was
voice.
thinking of
Kathleen Turner, like Romancing the Stone.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Another Indiana Jones.
If I had a
Kathleen.
good Kathleen Turner voice, I'd
That's
use it.
that's
Yeah.
the kind of person of Juno,
Yeah.
right? An authoritative female voice with an edge to it, right?
Yes.
A hint of anger.
Oh my gosh, Kathleen Turner would be the perfect Juno. You
think so?
I love that.
Okay.
I love that. But I'm not going to attempt to do her voice.
Janis Joplin.
Yes, you get throaty, scratchy, but powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She says, hated race, Phrygian fates at odds with mine. Couldn't they have died on the Stygian plain, defeated? Couldn't they have endured defeat? Didn't burning Troy cremate these men? No, they found a way through fire and foe. My divinity must be wearing thin. Or I have grown content, my wrath appeased. Not exactly. When they were thrown out of their country, I persecuted the outcasts all over the deep blue sea. All the powers of sea and sky have been used against them. So She's gonna throw it down. But again, Juno, she knows the rule of oracles. She knows the destiny has to come true, but she knows the wiggle room within the oracles. I can make it hell on earth for these people between points A and point B.
Correct.
Yep.
Jeff, one of the things that really strikes me about this speech is how similar it is to the angry speech she gives in book 1.
Right.
When they are she's about to unleash the storm at sea, right? Why can't these people know when they're beaten?
Yes.
Right, is the idea.
Yeah.
And of course, this brings out the incredible parallelism that's sown all through the epic. Book 1 corresponds to book 7, book 2 to book 8, 3, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And we can talk about that next time, perhaps a little bit at greater length.
Yeah.
But the speech here, it's so much like what she says in book 1.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just die?
Right. And it deliberately wants the audience to kind of to think of that.
That's
right?
correct. To
and
connect
that,
them.
And that I think that's what Mr. Reckford is. He's looking for that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Why? How does the second half make sense against the first half? Yep.
Precisely.
But hey, we are up against it. We got to get out of here. And so, but before we go, Dave, can you tell us a bit about the Moss method?
I can, and I want to make the big announcement of the Black Friday Monsai.
I love the Black Friday Monsai.
Yes, the Black Friday Monday Cyber.
Yes.
So this is our annual sale on the Moss method. It's going to begin on Thursday, which is American Thanksgiving. Thursday, what is it? November, let's see, 24.
That's what it is this year?
Okay. The 24th. It's going to begin on Thursday, November 24th, Thanksgiving Day, and it's going to continue through Monday, that is Cyber Monday, which is November 29.
Okay.
During this special time, you can get 10% off the Moss method, but you might be saying, what is the Moss method?
Yeah.
Jeff, tell them about the Moss method.
I'm going to leave that to you because you are the...
But you've heard it so many times now, like 60 or 70.
The Moss
Throw
method,
out just a few items.
Sure. It is a method of learning Greek designed by you over there on the other side of the table. And it is a way for anybody to learn Greek, and that can take you from neophyte to erudite in a fairly short time. You offer all kinds of stuff online, lots of videos, very personalized instruction.
That's right.
Lots of free videos to check it out before it kind of if you want to check things out before you make that leap.
Right. Well said.
You meet with the students in Moffus hours.
That's correct. Every Friday we meet for Moffus hours. We read Greek. We answer questions. We have a good time.
Right. And there's no kind of offloading this stuff on flunkies who don't know what they're doing.
It's direct.
It's direct, and you're the man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Boy, you did that well. I should hire you, man.
Oh my goodness, I'll be your flunky.
What a promo.
There we go.
And we have the Latin program too, which is going to have a Black Friday Monsai.
The same deal for that one too?
I haven't decided on the terms.
Okay.
You'll have to just go there and find out.
Okay.
But it's latinperdiem.com/LLPSI. And I'd like to say now that the course is completely finished and it has more than 25 hours of video instruction plus tons of other stuff. I'm going to raise the price. So it's $199 right now. This is going to be your last chance to get it at this bargain price before I have to raise it.
Gotcha. Yes. Listen, take advantage. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if I haven't decided, am I going to raise it to $3,000 or
goodness.
$4,000?
Well, I mean, there's inflation out there.
I got mouths to feed, man.
That's right. Yeah. So jump on it.
Yes. Whom do we need to thank?
As always, big thanks goes out to Mishka, our intrepid audio engineer, puts the whole thing together and makes us sound way better than we actually
That's right.
are.
She's our rapid response team. We record one of these and then we say, Mishka, we need this
Come on, turn it around.
90 minutes.
That's right.
Right?
And she can do it.
Just like that.
And who are these great musicians that the audience hears?
Yeah, so the screaming guitar at the beginning, I like to consider him a combination of Stevie Ray Vaughan and Eddie Van Halen, is the great Scott Van Zen.
Fantastic.
And he's doing those arpeggios and all that bluesy stuff. And then Ken Tamplin is one of the composers for that. And he also gives us the bumper music for the ads.
Yes, big thanks to those guys. Hey, if you want a shout out, if you want a question answers, if you have an idea for an episode, anything you'd like to hear, or if you have a corrigendum.
Yeah,
right?
you want to complain.
Yes, right. Tell us where we messed up.
Yeah, sometimes I'd like to send us an angry message, frankly.
I get plenty of those from you.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So if you want a shout out, if you anything on your mind, you can write to Dave at dave@adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V.
Or Jeff at adnauseam.com. Do not forget the V in ad Navseam.
No, otherwise it will not reach us.
Won't reach us. And Jeff, I believe that you have the gustatory parting shot.
I do. This comes from a mutual favorite of ours, the incomparable Groucho Marx.
There's nobody like that. The guy invented comedic banter.
He did. Yes, brilliant.
Unbelievable.
Right, and here's a bit of it. He says, 2 women at a resort discuss dinner. The food here is lousy, the first noted. The second added, you're right, in such small portions. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.